We are so excited to have Andy Arter today. He's the National Sales Director for Team Hired. He has experience in sales and marketing for over 12 years at this point. He's produced over 20 million in direct business to business sales and works with several thousand agencies across the country and recruiting team members along with telemarketing. So he takes enormous pride in helping clients build and improve their sales, marketing, and hiring process. We are so excited to have him today. I know he always has the most helpful tips and tricks. So, Andy, whenever you're ready to take it away.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And I want to give a huge shout out to you and your entire team. I know we've been working closely with you for a lot of our telemarketing clients for a number of years now. And I always tell agencies the quality of leads that you're selling that we telemarket are phenomenal. And the work that your team puts in is phenomenal. So you guys have been amazing. And, when we help agencies grow and telemarket, they need good data. And so we're not a data company, as you know. We're an employment firm, but you guys have really done an amazing job sourcing so much quality data. So thank you for that. And just a quick background on where I got involved in the insurance space. So I was working for Grant Cardone back in 2016 through 2019. I met the founder of one of the largest captive agencies in New York. At the time, they were doing about 25 million a year in premium. Eventually, he said, "Hey, I'm going to start a employment firm that does hiring and other services for agencies. And would you like to come along for the journey and help us grow?" So that was back in 2020. I joined, and 5 years later, I think I've worked with 4 or 5 thousand agencies directly and a lot of market leaders and things like that within the corporate structures as well. So I live in this world every single day, specifically on the hiring, staffing, employment, training side of the business. So I know last time I was with you, I talked about hiring. And at Team Hired, we still have a massive recruiting outfit tailored only for insurance agencies. So what we do on the hiring side is we help agencies source their entire pipeline of applicants. Our team handles the one-on-one screening of those applicants. And what we do is generate video interviews that we give to our agency owners, along with a resume, AI assessment, disc personality assessment, writing samples. It's about a 45-minute screening with any one candidate. And then we put those candidates in front of you on a daily basis, and you're able to go in and hire as many as you want throughout that month. And then we help on the back end with the licensing because we saw a huge bottleneck in licensing of team members. And so we decided to hire out a coach and started mentoring new hires to success. And we get about 84, 85% to pass their property and casualty in 2 weeks. And then if anybody doesn't pass, we just bring them back and we keep working with them and we'll get a vast majority through on the second attempt. So if anybody has a hiring need and you're growing right now, whether it's salespeople, service people, you want people locally in your office, you want to hire remotely, feel free to reach out to me. I put my scheduling link and my email directly in the chat, and you're welcome to book a time with me and we can talk about hiring. But about 2.5 years ago, in addition to the hiring, we started to see another challenge in the market, and that was activity shortages and agencies acquiring leads, but not working those leads the proper way. And so to help with that, what we started to do is we built out a telemarketing system where we help agencies actually by giving them their own dedicated telemarketer. And we manage and pay that person for the agent, and we run the entire system. In doing that for hundreds of agencies, I've learned a lot alongside our team and our clients about what a true telemarketing system looks like. And I think for anybody here, right, this is really an education as well on how to work leads, which I thought fit in very well with QuoteWizard because at the end of the day, many of you probably acquire many leads from QuoteWizard. And now the game is not where do I get my leads? You've already solved that problem. It's how do I work my leads more effectively? And I think when you deconstruct a telemarketing system, it reveals exactly where the bottlenecks are and how to solve those bottlenecks, right? Buying leads and not being able to get people on the phone. How do we solve that? Getting leads on the phone and wondering, is it a lead quality issue or is it a sales team issue? Or we just have to do a better job learning how to hook these people and get them interested in a quote. Those are all challenges. But beyond that, right? when we really think about telemarketing, I want to draw a line in the sand, and I'm going to start just the basics of telemarketing, and then we're going to dive into the science. And there's something on each four legs of this that you're going to want to take away that I think will help you figure out how do we work our leads more effectively, whether that's through our own telemarketer or a managed telemarketer like what Team Hired offers. So the first thing that I kind of laugh at this slide, but it's true. Sales professionals are paid to sell, right? Like most of you don't pay per dial. You're not paying per transfer. You're not paying per quote. Your sales professionals get paid usually a base pay of some kind, and then they get paid to sell policies and sell premium, right? And the more premium they sell, the more items they sell, the more money they make. Well, a producer can't be two places at once. And I think so many agencies try to push their sales team to be the prospector and the salesperson at the same time, which is a difficult road, not only for you getting them to, make enough dials every day and get consistent talk time. It's also a big challenge when it comes to their day to day, right? You look at a comparison of, let's say, hiring a licensed sales producer. We pay a base pay of, let's say, three to $4,000 a month. We pay out commissions, and now we've got a employee that costs you $4,000 to $6,000 per month. And what happens is they're busy quoting somebody, so they can't be prospecting. So they're working a deal. They get a moment to jump on the phones and call some leads. So maybe they get a 35-minute window and they're calling leads. But then they got to jump back in and they got to take an inbound call, or they got to, quote somebody, and those leads sit. And then when they have time, they come back to them. And so what happens is you see this inconsistency where a lead is purchased and it's called a few times, and then it can sit for, hours or days before it's called on again. And if you look at the science of how to convert leads, a lot of that has to do with how quickly you call them and how frequently you call them. The science says that you should be calling a lead at least 8 to 12 times in the first week, minimum. Beyond that, the science also says that if you would be willing to call a lead more than 12 times, let's say 15 or 17 times, there are even additional leads that will convert after that first week period. So most producers just plain don't do this, right? They'll call a lead maybe 4, 6, 8 times and it sits. So the whole goal in a telemarketer is it's a lower cost employee, and they are producing only outbound calls all day to go generate activity on your leads. And they can actually achieve this that we're looking at right here. They can achieve consistent outbound dialing, and they can put in that 15 to 19, 20 dials in a month on a lead. This converts to more of your leads actually turning into conversations, conversations turn into quotes, quotes turn into premium. So the whole game of a telemarketer is a lower cost solution to go work your leads, and also to be a huge conduit of success for your sales professionals, right? This is something that would get a sales producer to want to stay in an agency, because they're not having to go and make 150, 200 dials, if they'll even do that, and then get burnt out on dialing, and then somehow muster enough energy and a good enough attitude to then jump into a quote, and it's a customer's first impression, yet they came off 50 phone calls that they got hung up on, right? So it's a tough road for somebody as a producer who's forced to do both at the same time. But it's the only way, if you only have producers, you can grow, because they've got to prospect. They have to get leads on the phone, and they need to generate those quotes. So this is the problem that it really, really solves. And as we dive into this, I really want to segment this into four arms, right? I really like systems, and I like to look at this like a system. And I'm going to explain each one kind of in its own layer, and then we'll kind of put it all together. So this would apply to anybody here who's looking to maybe develop your own telemarketing program. This is also the same exact way that we build it and run it for our agencies. So if you're interested in us managing your own employment system where we, manage and pay the telemarketer and we run the systems for you, that's what we're here for as well. But I want to dive in and I want to show you exactly, the four legs of this. Forgive me, it's not going to be a perfect chart. I'm not an artist by any means, but it's at least going to give us, I think, a good mapping. So on the first leg of this, we've got data. Okay. And you guys, you're here with QuoteWizard. You know about data, you know where to get data, right? So the thing we found out about data is that it's actually very advantageous to, at first, test a variety of leads. Like a lot of people get really married or committed to the idea that, hey, we're only going to buy home leads. We're only going to buy monoline auto, multi-car auto, whatever. But until you actually test it and see what works, you don't know. And the beauty of a telemarketing system is you apply so much pressure on these leads in a professional sense. You make so many dials on them, and it's so measurable, right? Contact rates, transfer rate, quote rate, that you get a really good idea about your leads. So the first thing I would say on data is, and I'll do a new color here. Um, be willing to split test. Be willing to split test. I highly recommend like doing, let's say, a mixture of let's try some monoline auto leads, right? They're searching for just one vehicle, but we know that they're a homeowner. It's a less expensive lead, but we know that we might have an opportunity to cross sell them and get the home as well. So that's advantageous, right? Because now we pay a little bit less per lead, but at the end of the day, we're getting a customer that might potentially even have their home insured with us. Or multi-car auto. Why? Well, typically households that have two or more vehicles they need quoted have a little bit more financial wherewithal. Sometimes more frequently they're homeowners, not always, obviously. But it at least sets the opportunity up for two items within that household. And the lead cost is still relatively low. And then home leads, let's test some home leads, or let's test, some statewide searches versus local zip codes. Like if you're not going statewide, I guarantee there's agencies going statewide and they're stealing customers out of your backyard that are 10 minutes from your office and they're 2.5 hours away from you. And the customers don't care as much these days. Some do, but a lot don't. So, let's test something local, let's do a statewide, and let's maybe do some specific zip codes. So in split testing, right, when we talk about the systems, you want a system that can measure what leads perform how, right? If I'm doing QuoteWizard Home, QuoteWizard Multi-Car, QuoteWizard Monoline, QuoteWizard Monoline Homeowner, run them for 30 days through a telemarketing system, have them transfer those into your team, and then sit back and say, which of these categories were the best? Which ones should we get rid of? And reallocate those dollars into the ones that work better for our team. So split testing is very powerful, very powerful. I always have agencies ask me when they sign up for our telemarketing, what's the one lead type I should buy? I'm like, not one type, not one type. Don't start with one type. We'll get there. Start with multiple different filters and test it out. The other thing for a telemarketing outfit is that you don't want to get $15 to $20 leads for a telemarketer, right? From a cost modeling standpoint, it doesn't math out. That's why doing some of these filters that are a little bit lighter, we're not doing 10 filters, right? Try a couple simple sets of filters, keep your lead cost down below $8 on average. That's going to really help you drive a good cost of acquisition and also generate a pretty low cost per transfer. The target is to get your cost per transfer half of that of a live transfer company. And you achieve that partially by getting your data cost down as low as possible. And so again, like if you can target a lead that's, anywhere on the very, very basic leads from like $4 up to like $8, that's sort of the key, right in that range. Now beyond that, okay, on the data side, another thing that you want to look at when it comes to, working with a data provider is work with the QuoteWizards of the world. Why? Why don't you go out to Johnny's lead company? Because the infrastructure, you need a company that can devote the time to actually take data back and learn from it, right? So when you work with QuoteWizard, early into a telemarketing, let them know, hey, I'm going to probably feed you data in 30 days that's going to tell you the leads you sold me and what we got out of it. And I want you to help me understand what we can change to optimize based on that data. So that, collaboration is really, really important. And then you've got a team around you. It's not just you flying solo. It's you exporting a report of all the activity on all the leads and then figuring it out from there. So on the data front, what you'll typically see is that on new internet leads, okay, the benchmark for transfer rate, which I will just map out really quickly in case some of you don't know what that is. The transfer rate's pretty simple. It's the percentage of leads that turn into a live phone call with your team, okay? So if, for instance, if you purchased 100 internet leads, right? What percentage of those 100 leads are not only going to pick up the phone, but what percentage are going to say yes to a quote and be put on the line with your team? So the benchmark that we use is 10 to 20%. And you guys can reach out separately and I can kind of let you know the benchmarks for your state because quite frankly it does vary by state. Like I see Ricardo in the chat 20%, right? And for your market, that might be the number. There are more saturated markets or even more rural markets where the lead volume is farther and few between, the bid prices are higher, and the market on average isn't shopping as much. And you might have a market that's 12% or 14%. So we like to help agencies benchmark what is the average for your state and what should we expect? You need an expectation, right? If you're getting 5%, that's no good. If you're getting 10%, maybe it's good. Or maybe you find out like you're in Ricardo's market and it's supposed to be 20%. Well, okay, we're a little bit low here. Why? Well, that's all part of the game of telemarketing. We'll get into that, but this is good math because I think it'll help you understand, what are the parameters for how many leads I need to purchase to get to a certain result. So if I want, if I know that I'm at a 15% transfer rate, or we'll use Ricardo's 20%, right? And I buy 50 leads per day that are lower cost. Well, what is 20% of 50, right? Oh, okay. So that's about 10 transfers a day. Cool. So if I buy 50 leads, I'm at 20%. That means I'm going to get about 10 live transfers per day. If I buy 100 leads per day, I'm going to get about 20. So it's a matter of input and output. The more leads you provide, you measure that transfer rate and you hold to it. And that's going to help you predictably dial up or down your leads based on how many transfers that you want. So, and I have my chat open if you guys have questions along the way, but in the interest of time, let's move to leg number 2. Okay. Now we need a place to house our data. And this is going to come in with the dialing CRM or the dialing system. We'll call it dialing system, right? So here's a few things that are really, really important on dialing systems. First of all, you must have good spam remediation. Because spam remediation in the way that we work with it these days has a lot more to do with the phone carriers. Phone carriers tend to suppress, especially when you're telemarketing, they will tend to suppress a phone number if there's too many dials coming out from it in a set period of time. So the problem is if you try to put a telemarketer into a phone system where there's only a couple phone numbers and nobody's watching the health of those numbers, you might not even know it until you get your report that, oh, wow, we're only getting 10% of the people on the phone. This is something that agencies, I think they'll hire a telemarketer, put them on their phone system and go, it doesn't work. It's like, well, does it not work or are you not getting anybody on the phone? Those are two very different things. So with spam remediation, the way that's solved is multiple phone numbers, and they are registered in the state with an EIN. And I'll share with you a couple of companies that do this just to make it easy. But this is really the game where a proper dialing system, and I'll map this out visually real quick, will have a bank of phone numbers. So they got this bank of phone numbers, and inside of there, right, you've got a variety of phone numbers with your area code. So you've got, a set of numbers inside of this box that could be, you could pull a number out. The telemarketer may make 20, 25 dials from that phone number with the area code of the leads you're calling. Okay, that's important because if your customer sees a 1-800, they're not picking up probably, right? They see their own area code, more likely to pick up. But more importantly, you use that phone number and then proper spam remediation will substitute another number in instead. So for the next 20, 25 dials, it'll use a new number. What this does is it keeps you off the radar from all those blockers. A blocker, you won't even know it, right? You'll go to somebody's voicemail. It won't even ring their phone. You'll get a spam likely caller ID. These are not good. That's where you'll get a 10 to 15% contact rate. When we target, we want to get like a 35 to 50+% contact rate. The only way we achieve that is through proper spam remediation. So if you're going to put somebody in a seat to make hundreds of dials a day, you've got to make sure that you're on the proper phone system or it's just going to fail. And you think about it from a contact rate perspective, right? You look at, let's say, I don't know, 100 leads. We'll keep it simple. And my contact rate is 14%. That means I can call all 100 people over and over and over again, but I'm only ever going to get 14 out of the 100 on the phone, right? You think about you think about how many wasted leads there are because of that problem. It's huge. Versus if you get 40%. Now I get 40 of every 100 on the phone. That's 30 more opportunities than I would have had to potentially quote somebody. So spam remediation makes a huge difference. It's funny, I already see it in the chat where Alexander had recommended Ricochet. So that's actually the choice dialer that we use for team hired telemarketing. I highly recommend it because it already has something called Spam Guru or Spam Guru Pro is the better version. And they've really cleaned up and done a lot of work in the last 6 months to increase contact rates. And it's definitely given us a lift for our clients, and those who use it for their producers have also seen a massive lift. So on Ricochet, it handles that. There's companies out there like Call Purity that I don't know a whole lot about them, but I do know that they can work within certain phone systems and help with spam remediation as well. But if you're not aware of your contact rates, that's something you got to get your arms around and figure out where you're at. It's pretty simple, right? Like, oh, we bought 1,000 leads, we contacted 150 of them, right? After repeat phone calls. Okay, you're at a 15% contact rate. You already know you're way too low. So that's where something like a Ricochet really helps solve that problem automatically without you thinking about it. Um, the other thing about the dialing system, this is another very important component, is I don't know about you all, but if I were a telemarketer and I was given 500, 1,000, 2,000 leads to work, 5,000 leads, how in the world do I know who to call and when? Right? Can I go in there and really, as one human being, figure out what's new? Oh, it's a new lead. I'm going to call that 3 times today. And what's old? Should I maybe mix in some of these older leads? Like that's so much for somebody to compute. A manager doesn't have time to babysit that. A telemarketer is not going to figure that out. So with like a Ricochet, for instance, or any system you use, right? I'm saying like even if you use a different system, make sure you have call cadences. Call cadences prescribe basically the frequency and the allowable amount of dials on a lead, depending on what type of lead that is. So, for instance, you buy a lead from QuoteWizard and it's a new home lead, and you might, in your call cadence, say, I would like to call this person 12 times in the first week because the science says that's what I got to do. Well, how can you achieve that? Well, day one, I want them called no less than 3 times. Day two, I want another 3 calls. There's 6 dials in 2 days. And then we're going to cool off a little bit, right? We're going a little crazy on this person. Let's do 2 calls a day, 2 calls a day, 2 calls a day. So that's 3 dials, 6 dials, 8 dials, 10 dials, 12 dials in 5 business days. Then the next week, maybe it's 1 dial per day for the next week. So let's put in another 5 dials over the next week. And then maybe the final 2 weeks, we just call them once every 3 days. So it's sort of a descending aggression, is what I like to call it, right? Like let's do a lot of activity because we know that 80 to 90% of leads convert within 1 to 2 weeks of being originated. But that's where most people drop the ball. They don't build a cadence out that goes 3 or 4 weeks. We see huge differences, even if it gives you an extra few here and there, right? There are people that get blown up on their phone. They get text messages and calls from 8 different agencies. And the one who sticks and stays and follows up the longest is the one that will find that person that's still willing to chat with you. So call cadences are very important because you don't want a telemarketer having to think about who to call. Not even a sales team, I don't think really. It becomes too much for a single human to decide who to call and how many times. And I love call cadences because you can prescribe how do we want to work our leads, guys? Like maybe you're an agency and I wouldn't hold it against you and you're like, we're not going to do 3 dials a day. That's too crazy. I don't think that's a good choice. I think you should be calling people 3 times a day. Somebody else certainly is. But let's just say you were like, well, maybe we'll do that for the first day, but then we'll give them a day to rest and then we'll tap them 2 more times. Like, have it your way. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to build your cadence for your culture and the way that you think you should present to the market, do it. The call cadence is going to determine how your leads are worked. A human being isn't going to make that mistake. So, oh, great. There's some additional GHL CRM has cadences. Awesome, Ricardo. Thank you for that. That's super helpful. Now, with a dialing system as well, right? Reporting is really important. So on the reporting, for reports specifically, I would say you definitely want to have tiering, which means you can just, well, I'll put it to you this way. Um, lead labels. So you want to be able to measure each lead type, right? If you buy like a home lead and an auto lead from QuoteWizard, separate them and label them differently. Because at the end of a month, you can run both side by side and you can figure out what was our contact rate on each, how many transfers did we produce, how much business did we close, and it's going to tell you where you're making money and which leads are doing the best for you. So definitely setting up labeling in there ahead of time, very, very important. Okay. This brings me to the third leg. Now that we have data and it's going into a dialing system that's got spam remediation and we have call cadences preset and we've got reporting set up to tell us what in the world is happening inside of there, now we kind of journey into the third leg, which is let's put somebody in that seat to do the telemarketing. So this is our telemarketer. Um, telemarketer, put them here. So now we have a telemarketer. What I would recommend, this is what we do at Team Hired. We hire people near shore. Near shore is a little bit different than overseas, right? Overseas would be like India, Bangladesh, South Africa. Nothing wrong with that. It's just really difficult with time zones. The other thing is avoid third-party call centers. If you've got to work through some call center manager, they can repurpose multiple telemarketers. You don't have control. I highly recommend either working with a company like us where we can hire an individual for you and they're a managed person that only works for your book, or if you do it yourself, I recommend hiring them directly. It gives you a lot more control, a lot more oversight, and more consistency, right? You don't want to like have a new caller every 2 days. If something goes wrong and it's not working, how do we know what it is? Is it because I have a new caller today? Is it that the leads change? Is my dialing system off? It takes so long to diagnose. And so, and oh yeah, Alexander's saying crisp. Yeah, crisp AI will actually bend their accent to sound more English, which is pretty interesting. It's a pretty wild company out there. So yeah, crisp AI definitely an interesting organization. And if you can link up with them and get them plugged in, it doesn't matter as much. But I will tell you what we've learned in going to areas like Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela, Mexico for bilingual Spanish. We've found if you're willing to interview enough people, you can find a lot more clear English than you traditionally think a telemarketer would be. And you can even find bilingual Spanish and English out of Mexico. We do this for our clients all the time. We interview about 600 people a week. We vet them. We language test them. We put them on a dial on Ricochet. We test them out. We have them make 1,000 calls, watch their performance, and then if they pass all of that and they still want to do the job, cool. You have a job. We'll place you within an agency, right? So what I would say in your hiring method is, first of all, I think nearshore is the best option. First of all, it's more affordable. Typical American isn't going to want to do a telemarketing job, or they will find something else. You can make more money working at CVS and get a 401k before you take a telemarketing job, right? So it's pretty difficult to retain stateside people. It's a different conversation if you want a new producer to telemarket for a few months before they get licensed. That's a whole different animal, right? But when we talk about a dedicated role, nearshore tends to be the most affordable and the best language. The other piece to this is going to be in hiring. Do a test. And this is what we do at Team Hire. This is what you can do for yourself. Bring in 2 or 3 people, put them all on the same dialing system, put them on a week of temporary stipend pay and let them do the job for a week and watch them. Like, test multiple people at the same time, because chances are somebody's going to burn out. Somebody's not going to like the job. Somebody's going to say something on the phone that you don't like, and you can just move on to the next candidate. So testing multiple out before you choose one is really important. We always do that for our clients. If you're doing this for yourself, I would highly recommend that you don't just land on the first person. The other piece to it is going to be incentive wise. What we recommend is like an hourly rate plus doing some kind of a bonus. That bonus can either be per transfer and it doesn't have to be a lot, right? You could have an hourly rate and then bonus them an extra $1 a transfer, $2 a transfer, or a benchmark. Hey, if you get us 150 transfers this month, you'll get an extra $200, an extra 400, 600, whatever that metric is. And with nearshore, right, the way the dollars convert is that's a lot more money to them as it would be for somebody here. So the money goes pretty far when you have the right person. So having like an incentive structure to get them to chase that extra bonus is huge. And a lot of people really will, right? It makes a huge difference for them. I won't disclose too much, but I have a team member who's halfway around the world that works with me on some other projects, right? Like when you look at the way our dollars convert and what might not be a crazy, amazing bonus here for this individual could mean 2 months worth of rent, right? So you start to look at that on nearshore as well, or even overseas. These bonuses can go a very long way, and like you guys know how it works. You incentivize somebody, if they've got a good attitude, they've got the skill set, and they want to win that bonus. They're gonna, scratch, crawl, and fight to go get it, and that's a really good thing, right? That's the American way is incentives and reward. So, um, yeah. I see that there, Alexander. You make sure they're not sending bad transfers. I would say have somebody on for 30 or 60 days. Make sure they're doing great. And when you go, great, man, quality's good. We've cleaned up anything. Now I'm gonna, incentivize them. Sometimes you don't want to do that day one, but once you find that person and they stick and you're like, this is the one, then you can start to incentivize through that way. But Alexander, amazing feedback. Um, Also on telemarketers, okay? Another really important piece, I recommend video management. Like at Team Hired, when we bring in a telemarketer for somebody, they've got to be on a video feed for 8 hours a day with our manager because we want to watch them. Not to micromanage, but in a way, like we definitely want to see, are you making your 400 to 600 dials? Are you showing up to work on time? Are you working two jobs at once? Like how do you know if you don't have them on video? So video is a great way to manage. Another piece on the management side of it is role play with them, right? Like I think it's easy to forget about this person when really they're the front line of your business. So, have them send you two objections that they didn't know how to handle over the last week and just do a 30-minute training or a 20-minute training. Again, something that we've seen on our side providing this for so many agencies is people always need refreshers. They always need encouragement. And, training is an investment. And a lot of these individuals are not used to getting that attention. So it means a great deal to them as well because it makes their job easier. They become more effective and they feel supported by you, which makes them want to stick and stay. So training is like a very much desired by a lot of telemarketers, right? And so you got to be the one to provide that or have a company provide it for you. But role playing with them, really important. Call review. Can you go in and listen to some calls and hear what's actually happening? You don't have to listen to 100, but can you listen to a couple a week and just make sure that you're happy with the way things are going? As like a manager or a business owner, right? If you hear something being said that you're like, no, 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 that's not the way we do it. You don't go scream at them. You say, hey, let's jump on a Zoom together. Let's pull up this recording and listen to it together. Okay. Do you hear how you did it? Good. This is how we should do it instead. Can you role play it with me? Great. I'm going to check in over the next day. I want to see that this gets changed. Okay. This is very important to us. If you have any questions for me, if you're not ready, we can continue to role play it. You can put them in AI training that does this for you, right? Like at Team Hired, we have Jarvie AI. You can actually just build an avatar that role plays with your telemarketer, which is what we do, as well as our own managers, or you could do it yourself. But I think call reviews, um, you know, corrections made quickly and noticing what's going wrong, but also measurables. So a measurable, a really good measurable is going to be their contact to transfer rate, which is simply put, of the people you actually get on the phone. Okay, let's say we achieve a 40% contact rate. So if you call 100 people and you get 40 of them on the phone, what percentage of those say yes to talking with our team about a quote? If it's 10%, we got a huge problem because only 10% of the people that are actually picking up their phone for you are you convincing to go talk with our team. Now, it could maybe be a lead thing, maybe. But if you're seeing that, hey, across the board, we have a 10% contact to transfer on all of our lead types, it's not a lead issue. Versus if you get monoline auto, multi-car auto, and home, and you see that one of them has a 10% contact rate and the other one has a 40% contact rate. Okay, well, that's a lead problem, right? That's me going back to my QuoteWizard rep and saying, hey, we are buying three different types of leads from you. We're seeing an issue where one of the lead types gets a very low contact rate. Why and how can we fix it? Right. And that's something great for the lead vendor to work on because then they have hard data to go by and say, oh, yeah, we can pinpoint the issue there. On the flip side, though, if everything they're calling is a low contact to transfer rate, we got a problem because their skill set is not getting the transfers over. So on the really, really inexpensive leads, right? If you can get to like a 25, 30% contact to transfer rate, you're going to get plenty of transfers. If it's less than that, there's work to do. And if it's greater than that, fantastic, rock and roll, But when you have a contact to transfer rate issue, it's usually because we're not, we need to dive in and listen to what's happening on those calls. Because a good telemarketer, again, is going to get 25+% contact to transfer rate. One that's not at that level will not. So it's really, really important when you dive into this that you have a measurable. You don't necessarily have to tell them this number, but it's for you to have a red flag, right? If they get a 10% contact to transfer rate, red flag should go up. There's something going on that phone call that needs corrected because we should be getting more people to say yes. Now, that could be any number of things, right? That could be the way that they handle objections. It could be their intro. It could be a rework of your script that maybe it's your responsibility to change their words and try out something different, which is what we've done for years now, is like test out tons of scripts, test out different measurables to optimize this person. But there's a benchmark that they should be hitting. So on the telemarketing side, the final piece I would say, involve them in your vision. Tell them how important it is what they're doing. Thank them often. Bring them to team meetings. Get them bought in. Do a award ceremony at the end of the month and have 3 different awards. And one of them is the most sold premium for the month. And that goes to your top producer. And the other one is the rising star. And that goes to your rookie. And the other one is the best team player or the hardest worker or whatever, right? But you reward them and you send them a $50 gift card. Oh my gosh, you have no idea. Like literally, when we see people involve their telemarketer with the company, they don't feel like they're on some island. They feel bought into the vision. And this is true for virtual assistants as well. If you get them bought into why it's important, hey, it's really important that we work on this and that you get this call down because you are pivotal to our organization, right? What you're doing is really going to help drive great results. And as we continue to grow, this is a great opportunity for you to step up, get to that level. And hey, if we hire out more people like you in the future, we could actually bring you in and maybe even make you a team leader. And you can teach the next telemarketer how you got so good. So when you get people bought in, like it's a human being, it's a human being. And I think too often telemarketers can be treated as a number and they're anything but that. So really, really important. Get them involved in your team. Get them bought in on the vision. Okay. So now we have data flowing into a dialing system, and we have this managed telemarketer. It's hopefully affordable and they're set up for success, and we've trained them on our scripts. And now we've got the final leg, which is the sales team and the handoff. So what we recommend is either you have your sales team in the same system that the telemarketer is dialing out from, so they can internally transfer the lead, right? They can just transfer it inside the same system to your team. The one advantage to that, I will say, and it's a massive advantage in my opinion, if you have your team working the leads in the same system, like let's say, I know we've mentioned Ricochet, I think GHL was mentioned by Ricardo, that if a lead is purchased, it's put into a dialing system, it's called by a telemarketer, and it's transferred to your sales producer. And then what happens with it? Was it quoted? Was it not quoted? Was it sold? Is it pending a sale? Is it lost? So that is the final piece to the puzzle, right? Because that's going to really tell you how much money you're making. Like if you can do an average cost per lead and plug it into your CRM, and it'll auto calculate what your cost per sale is, right? If you transfer these from a dialing system to another CRM and your team dispositions it as closed, the original system that held the lead has no idea. So it's very difficult to calculate at the end of a month the true ROI. So if you're able to put your team in the same system that they're in, that's ideal. If you're not, you want to do a lead line that is going to essentially dial the entire sales team without a calling tree. And that's going to be the simplest way to do it. I would recommend Shark Tank, meaning that everybody on the team gets rung at the same time, who's eligible for transfers. And with your sales team, I would recommend a few things. First of all, do live transfer training. At Team Hired, we do a once a week class for all of the producers involved in this. And we teach them how to handle the stuff after the transfer. Here's how you greet a customer. Here is how you handle that objection, right? Tell us about a transfer that went south this week. Well, we got a couple transfers and they said they just wanted us to email them a quote. Okay, good. And you said what? Well, I said I'd email them the quote and we hung up. Okay, good. Training opportunity for your sales team there. Instead of that, how about absolutely, I'd be happy to email you the quote. Let's put it together now with all the discounts, the advantages, the coverages that are going to make sense for you and your family. We'll wrap this up quickly and then I can, of course, get you this in writing and send it over via email, right? First of all, are you still at 123 Main Street? Like, I didn't lose the deal. I didn't let them off the phone. It can be very simple things where you're leaking money. just because the sales team doesn't know how to handle that situation, right? Or they keep coming back to you and they're like, you know what, these particular leads, like some of them aren't qualifying. Thank you for the information in our training class. Let me take that back to our rep and let's work with the lead vendor to fix that, right? All the way upstream at the first leg here of data. But some kind of training for your team, maybe on a weekly basis, daily would be awesome, but at least weekly, and get them involved to talk about what's going wrong. This is not a celebration meeting, right? You can have that later. This is a tell us about a transfer that went south. Tell us about a transfer that should have been quoted and wasn't. Tell us about one that got dropped in your lap and you didn't know how to take the transfer. So the more you can train your team to receive the calls and the closer they are with your telemarketer, the more seamless that transition is going to be, right? It should be clean. Customer should pick up the phone. Telemarketer should tell them why they're calling and see if they're interested. Telemarketer should instantly transfer them into your team and somebody should pick up right away. And then they should be introduced by the telemarketer. Hey, I've got John Smith on the phone. He's looking for XYZ. Can you help him out? And the sales team should be ready to say, absolutely, John, great to meet you. I would love to connect with you and, obviously walk through this quote with you. But first of all, why are you shopping insurance today? What's changing for you? And boom, your team's into a conversation. So the more you can train your team, maybe even bring the telemarketer into those trainings, the better. Also on the sales team side, right? Measure the results of what you're getting and figure out if there's anybody who's wasting these leads. Really, like if you have 5 team members and 4 of them are crushing it with the live transfers and the other one's excuses, the leads suck. Okay, it's probably not that the leads. It's probably that producer needs more training. So I always divert back to training when we see problems in metrics, but measure their results across this as well and ask for their feedback on the leads. Like there's some things the data won't tell you, like a transfer rate, a contact to transfer rate. That's one thing. What about your team filling out a one-line report every time that they quote somebody off of this or get a transfer, and they just give their sentiment about it? This was a really difficult lead. Customer was hardly qualified, this and that, and it was almost impossible to close. Or this was a phenomenal lead. I want more of these. Or this one didn't even qualify. If you could start getting data back from your team on feedback about your leads, that's sticky information. That's something you can actually go back to your rep over at QuoteWizard and say, hey, I'm getting some feedback here on our home leads. We're finding that about 2 or 3 of these a week are having this one problem. Is there anything we can do to fix that on filters? Is there anything we can do to fix that on our data acquisition? Because I'd like to clean it up for my team. So you just tell your team, the more you tell me, the better this will be for you, right? You guys get to kind of pick your own menu of what you receive on the phone, but I need you to tell me what's not working so we can fix it for you. So it puts you in kind of service to your team as well, which I think is a great way to lead. From there, right, you look at this entire system. I think there's one other area we really got to dive into, and that is the math side of this, okay? And the reason I think the math matters is a lot of people look at telemarketing and they have a hard time wrapping their head around, what is my cost per transfer? How does this compare to a live transfer? And I really like to demystify that entire thing. So I'm going to take an agency that's a little bit larger scale, maybe buying 80 leads a day, and I'm going to price them at a super low cost. Let's start with the bottom leads. We'll go with a $5 lead. Okay. And then let's figure that a proper telemarketer, let's say they get an 18% transfer rate. Okay. And I'll run you guys through this just the same way I do with our clientele is that, hey, okay, we've got a model here. I'm going to buy 80 leads at $5 a piece. I'm expecting a 18% transfer rate. So let's take 80 leads times 0.18. And that tells me that at this scale, I should get on average about 14, it's 14.4, but we'll do 14 transfers per day. So cool. Now I have a scale to work from. I understand that if I buy this many leads, after all is said and done, they hit our dialing system and we get a certain contact rate and they get transferred for my team. I'm getting about 14 transfers per day. So if you extrapolate this over the course of a month, right? In a month, 80 leads a day times 21 days is 1,680 leads. And the cost to do that at $5 a piece is, 8,400. Okay. Now, and this is a much larger scale, but I think this is a interesting example, and it's going to show you guys kind of the magic to telemarketing, I believe. So the other thing we want to look at is if we're getting 14 transfers per day, and there's 21 business days. Some of you math gurus already probably figured it out. That would be about 294 transfers in a month. Okay. So now what we want to do is add in the potential cost of a telemarketer, which I could just transparently tell you, like when we manage somebody, pay them for the agency, provide the sales training, run the dialing system, and we do it all for you, a cost through a company like ours is about $2,300 a month. So let's add the lead cost and let's add the cost to run the entire telemarketing system from top to bottom. And we'll come up with a net cost for this system at $10,697 in a month. Okay. And this is, again, like you can run a scale of 30, 40 leads a day. There's a lot of different models you can use for this, but I'm just going to give this one example and just know we can math it out one-on-one anytime. But here's what's interesting about this to me. Okay. Let's take the 10,697. So we'll take the net cost, 10,697, and we're going to divide that by 294 transfers. And what that equals is $36.38 per transfer. And I think this is right here the magic to proper telemarketing. When it's done the right way and you achieve something like this in an environment where you can definitely go out and buy live transfers, but they cost, I don't know, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, unless you have some wild relationship with your lead vendor. They're going up in cost these days because they do a lot to produce those for you. When you do it this way, you're still, purchasing a volume of leads and you're still needing to fuel this person, but you're putting them through your own calling mechanism. And as a result, I think you get rewarded on the back end because your cost per transfer is so much lower than like a purchased live transfer. So this is a number that floats. It changes month over month. And depending on your scale, like the more leads you do, the lower this cost is going to be. The fewer leads you do, the higher the cost is going to be, right? If we ran this at 40 leads a day, I bet that number is closer to like $43, $44 a transfer. But, if you can play within that range, it's a predictable dollar figure, right? I think sometimes we look at a figure of spending 5 or 6 or 7 grand a month and it's like, oh, that's a lot of money. It's like, well, yeah, but also what is the cost to get somebody on the phone through another method, right? Or what is the timeline in achieving that through direct mail or something like that? So you start to look at a telemarketer, and you can also repurpose leads, which will drive this cost down even further. So maybe you have requotes or aged leads that weren't worked well enough in the past, or stuff from 6 months ago that's okay to call. And you start to mix that in with the new leads as well. It's going to drive even more transfer volume, and it's going to continue to drive your cost down. So I think if you're doing this the proper way, you're going to be able to drive down a much lower cost per transfer. And even if you're at a $7 lead and it jumps this number up to, $48 or something, it's still usually very advantageous and it's scalable. It's scalable. Like we have several clients on our side that have, let's say, 5 telemarketers and they average 90 to 110 live transfers per day. I don't think they could go out in their market and buy that many live transfers. It's not even in the inventory available to them. But what they're able to do is get enough data of their own to self-generate those transfers and net a very, very low cost per transfer. So I think it's interesting for scale as well, where you're able to really scale it up pretty quickly and get a lot of volume to it. So before I finish up, I do want to open it up for any and all questions in the chat. I also just want to very, very quickly, and I don't want to spend too long on this, but I do want to give out my contact information. If anybody wants to meet with me one-on-one, for help on this, or if you want to look into our system where we basically build all of this and do it for you, this is my QR code to schedule a meeting. I put it into the chat. This is my direct email, and then this is my cell phone. So I'm usually back to back to back all day. So if you send me a text, I can link up with you and we'll find a time to chat, or you can, click on my scheduling link or email me. And then just for those of you who are thinking like, maybe this is a good system for you, but you want something where we come in and manage it for you. We do the account management. We employ and pay the telemarketer and hire them for you. We give you the metrics. We provide the sales training. We have a transparent resolution process where we'll replace a telemarketer for free if needed very quickly. Alexander asked, are they trained? My older dialer was sending X transfers mid-convo and the prospect was caught off guard with the transfer. Yeah, so yeah, if you're doing mid conversation transfers, it's probably just a telemarketer trying to hit a bonus, and they're doing whatever it takes to try to hit their metrics. you've got to, set that expectation early. That's what we do is, no blind transfers. If we ever hear of something like that, it's got to be corrected within 48 hours or you're gone. Like, that's not going to help your team at all. Your team will get frustrated, I believe, if they're taking people mid conversation or they're like, I didn't ask to be transferred or any number of situations. So you definitely want to, make sure that telemarketer does a clean transfer. And it's also helpful to put your team and the telemarketer on like a Slack channel together. That way they can give a forewarning that, hey, team, I'm about to transfer somebody. And your team can get a little ping 10 seconds before that and somebody can ready themselves. So the other piece is on Aubrey, you asked about what the AI name is. It's another one of our organizations called Jarvee. Jarvee.io is the website. You can reach out to me to my email. I can send you some information, but we offer a system where you can actually preload, as many avatars as you want, and we build them around what your people actually face. If it's a telemarketer training inside of there, it's going to be an outbound call and it's going to be how to handle frontline objections. If it's a producer, maybe you want to do training on how to, deal with rate increases, or you want to train them how to call a certain type of lead, or maybe there's an objection that you want to train your team on. And we build a profile around a customer who's frustrated and short on time and pressuring them on price. And we could just create an avatar that's just a tyrant to talk to, right? And it's like, hey guys, if we can get really good at this person, anybody else is going to be easy. So we can build any variety of quote unquote customers for them. And it's just like a phone call. They connect, person picks up and they start having a conversation, and then you can measure that. We benchmark it, and the AI now even coaches them throughout that. So they can pause, it'll give them some positive feedback and then some criticism on what they can correct, and they can continue training. And then it benchmarks it across your entire company. So you can kind of see how your team does skill wise once the AI starts to measure them. So yeah, feel free to reach out, Aubrey, on that or anybody else. And I can, give you the details on what that looks like, how much it costs, and all that good stuff. So
I got a couple as well through our Q&A. So one
cool.
was returns. I know you said now it's, how does that typically look though, and what's that process?
Yeah, and I don't know exactly how you guys operate. If sometimes you offer a lead at such a low price point that maybe it's the cheaper leads and they don't have any returns at all. I would say if you offer that, like that's not the most uncommon thing for us to see, as long as the bad number rate or something isn't too significantly high. If you guys offer something to where it's maybe a little bit of a lower price, but they can't do returns on it, it's actually pretty common. I have a couple hundred agencies that do it that way. They're like, we're not worried about returns. We just want to get volume. And like if we have 5 or 6% of these that are bad, we're fine with it. Like the volume that we're playing at is so much bigger than that. Or you just have a status in your CRM and you train the telemarketer to status the lead properly if they have an issue. If you made an agreement on a return that, hey, if it was this situation, we can return it within X number of days. And ideally, you just set up an automated report that kicks out to you daily. And anytime they label a lead with that, it goes into that report, goes to a manager, they forward it to you guys. So you can do it that way as well. It just depends on the setup.
Yeah. And I would say that too. I know, not everyone here, we know the lead game. I know you have other vendors, so I won't speak to them. But when you, we'll be honest. Um, ours, we have a recommended when we say to do returns and do it all at once because, we want to really look at how they're performing too. So we want to know, like, oh my gosh, are you returning so many? Like, why? What's going on? So I know on
Mhm.
our end, we really, we need to check ours too. The
That's
other
great. No, that's phenomenal. Yep.
Okay, next is, and I know, someone said this and it got answered in like a one-off, so I wanted to say it out loud, but what's the average leads that I should provide each producer?
Well, I think it has to do with dial count. Okay. So play a little bit of math here really quickly. And I got to go to the math. So it depends how many dials they make. Let's take a producer and you got to be honest with yourself, right? How many dials are they actually making per day? If it's 80 dials a day, okay, I'll just say 80 dials a day, and they're dialing 21 days a month, that's 1,680 calls per month, okay? Now let's figure some of the leads they call will convert on the first or second dial. Some will need like 15 dials. So let's figure for the average lead, we need to allocate about 8 dials per lead. Some will convert on 4, some will take 12 dials, but let's just pick a middle average and say, hey, if we can put an average of 8 dials in per lead per month, we're going to be good. So now I got to divide 1,680 dials by 8 dial attempts per lead, and it's 210 leads divided by 21 business days. That's 10 leads a day. So I think it depends on call volume. If you have somebody making 300 dials a day, give them 20 or 30 leads a day. If they're making 40 dials a day, give them 5 leads because at some point you're going to break them because you give them too many leads. And when leads sit, they die. So if they're only making 50 calls a day and you have 10 leads coming in, do that for 5 days. That's 50 leads in 5 days. And they're only making 50 dials a day. At some point, those are going to age out. They're going to stop getting to the leads fast enough or frequently enough. So definitely important to like balance that out. But again, the math is take their daily call average, multiply it times the 21 business days, and figure out how many dials is this person going to make in a month, and then divide that by about 8, and that'll tell you about how many leads responsibly they're going to be able to work within a 21 business day month. And then you can divide that by the number of business days, and it'll tell you, oh, I can give them 7 a day, and that's a good balance for them, or I can give them 14 a day, or whatever. So,
I think that's awesome. I hope you guys like wrote that down. I want to write that down. That's so good. I think that's awesome. Okay. This is my final question that I have recorded. So, but I'm looking in the chat if anyone has anything else. It's texting. Okay, we're talking about live calling, but texting, how does that play a role?
yeah, I mean, honestly, for us, like we tend to keep away from it in our telemarketing system because there's so much TCPA compliance to keep in mind with texting, but it can be very, very effective. So just make sure if you do it, like we don't specialize in that, so I really can't speak at a real high level to it. But multi-channel outreach is definitely a huge thing. So I know there's organizations that will do like the blue, like send in blue, they'll do a text, blue text and things like that. Hearsay, if you're an all-state system, there's different platforms for different carriers. But no, I think a cadence that involves texting and email simultaneously can be very, very effective. But you've got to make sure they talk to each other from a compliance standpoint. If somebody says, "Do not call me, do not contact me, take me off your list via text," and that doesn't somehow remove it from the calling list, and then you call them 10 minutes later, you're gonna have a real problem on your hands. So just be really careful when you're doing multi-channel that the opt-out is congruent across all your marketing channels, if that makes sense.
Okay, that was amazing. I know we're right at time. I know, Andy, you're so, so busy, so we're so happy to have you here. Thank you,
Happy to be here.
everyone. The data was amazing. All the systems talked about were so good. So thank you again. I hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks, Gina. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.